Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest Brain or Shine webinar with me, Mark and Jules.
Yes, welcome everybody, and it's nice to be here again. Doesn't really seem like 5 minutes since the last one, but here we are, and really looking forward to it.
So yeah, I have no concept of time. It seems like longer than 5 minutes for me. But we hope you're all well, and it's lovely to see you back. We have a brand new platform, which is actually the same as the one that we originally started with, which worked a lot better for us. So if you've experienced difficulties in the past, and we do apologise for that, things will be a lot easier from now on, and we'll have everything in place and set up from next month, where you'll get regular reminders, and also you'll get links to recordings automatically and everything as well. So that's going to be easier. So this one's a trial part 4 or whatever it is.
But we think this is the platform, and as with most things, sometimes it is a little bit of trial and error. So here we are. And before we start, I thought I would just mention the little bruise that you may see on my face. Trying to sort of hide it with my glasses. I don't wear makeup, so I haven't got anything to hide it with. I just had a fall and tripped over. Nothing dramatic or fancy or anything, but just managed to face plant the pavement, which was very painful, but it's almost 2 weeks ago now, so it's healing lovely. But just in case you're thinking, well, what's she done, or was she under the influence or anything like that? No, just a simple, horrible, nasty fall.
You've been asked that a few times, haven't you?
I have. So I thought we'd clarify everything now in case you have any questions.
But yeah, so the format of the webinar is obviously we're going to give you guys some information based on our experience, as always, and also based on our research, which we'll come to that in a moment. But just a few, I never like the words house rules or housekeeping. It always sounds a bit cynical, doesn't it? Clinical or whatever. But whatever you call it, just a few house rules, I will use that. If you would like to connect with us and obviously ask any questions in the chat, any comments, anything that you have experienced that you can share that will help us as well, pop in the chat. If we're midway through something, we might not answer straight away, so we'll come back to it at a time which seems more easier to break the flow, if you know what I mean. So do pop things in the chat. There's a recording at the end of it as well, so I've just got to work out how that works and then get it over to you if you're watching this live. If you're watching this recording, then you've already got the recording. So that's fantastic, isn't it? Today we're going to be talking a little bit about, I'm just going to my screen here, we called it the structure of the brain and how to activate your memory. Now, Jules and I have worked with teenagers and people in education for a number of years, and this was actually pre my brain injury as well. So in my early days of this journey, I actually had the pleasure of working with some real top world memory champions who are absolutely fascinating people. And they talked a lot about the memory functions, but also about the psychology of the brain. And this really, really interested me and fascinated me at the time. So I got a lot of experience from that. And one of the biggest myths that I discovered on this was that your memory doesn't actually deteriorate with age. So if people go, oh, I forget that because I'm old, that's actually a rubbish statement. But your brain is affected by a brain injury or damage to the brain. So that is not a myth. But fascinatingly, your brain actually stores every single memory from the day you're born as well. Now, the thing is, you won't actually activate and remember every single memory, because if that was possible, your brain would probably just completely crash and explode. So imagine a computer that's running every single function that it does in one go, the computer will crash. And that's a little bit like what's happened to our brains when they're injured as well. They crash a little bit easier, like when your computer's out of date. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the brain, how to activate your memory. And a lot of that has come from my study. Jules then went on to study
I did my master.
Yeah,
I'll do it, it's easier. My master NLP qualification, which is neuro-linguistic, which is really how to think about your mindset and how you can use that to help you to achieve what it is that you want out of life. I've done some fabulous psychology courses, one that's with mindfulness, and I'm also at the moment doing a neuroplasticity course, which I'm really, really enjoying and finding it very useful in understanding how your brain works, or not, as this is called.
And I love that word, neuroplasticity. It sounds fabulous, doesn't it?
It sounds fabulous, but it's quite hard to say.
Yeah. Broken down, neuro means brain and the way it thinks, and plasticity means it's malleable. So it means it can actually be developed and changed. Yeah. So if you think of plasticine, it always reminds me of plasticine. Plasticine is malleable. And I think the word plasticine actually came from plasticity.
That's it.
Yeah. I have nothing to back that up, by the way. I've just totally guessed that because that's what it reminded me of.
And we'll probably go into that in more depth later on in a different webinar. But at the moment, we're just going to really focus on the structure of your brain. And you may think to yourself, why would you want to do this? And now for us, on our journey, it was quite some time before we had any full understanding of the disabilities, or particularly the hidden ones, from a brain injury. When we eventually did get some help, and then we were explained how your brain is structured and really in depth how it works, it made us fully understand the situation and the disabilities and the after effects that we were living with. And it just sort of made it easier to try and work with. So we thought we'd just share some bits with you about that as well.
Yeah, I've got a few fun facts here. So the brain itself is actually the fattiest organ in the body.
Which is weird, isn't it?
It's amazing, isn't it? We always think about putting on belly fat, or
I was going to say your belly or your bum.
Belly or your bum. But yeah, the brain's actually 60% fat, which is fascinating. But it weighs on average about 3 pounds, which is just over 1.5 kilos, just under 2 kilos. So even though it's a fatty organ, it's not going to put a lot of weight on the body, really, is it?
No.
And also, you have this one here as well.
Inside. You write. That's it. That's it. Inside you right now are nearly the same amount of brain cells as there are stars in your galaxy. Sorry, I couldn't read that. It's just in far away, and it didn't make any sense. So sorry. But yes, the amount of brain cells that you have in your brain are more than there are stars in the sky, which is mad.
Yeah, and that's all inside here.
Yeah.
And what I always used to love telling teenagers when I was in school is, if you do this, that is about the size of your brain. And guess what? If you've got small hands, do you know what that means? No, it doesn't mean you've got a small brain at all. Basically, if you have small hands, it just means you need small gloves or something like that. But yeah, the brain is about roughly the size of you putting your two fists together. And the right side of the brain controls the left side of your body, and the left side controls your weight. So again, that's really, really fascinating. But what also happens is, if you damage the right side of your brain, it can also affect the left side of your body. Absolutely. And vice versa as well. But all these things about the brain are not set in stone. Our brain is so complex. So you could damage the right side of the brain and have damage to your right side as well. It's very, very inconsistent. And we found this through our studies, that obviously no brain injury is the same. And
it's very individual.
Talking to guys like yourselves, we've found a lot of similarities, but we've also found a lot of differences as well. So this is why it is really, really difficult for scientists out there to understand what we're going through.
Because it is a very, very complex organ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, also, we have various lobes in our brain as well. Should we talk a little bit about the lobes and their functions?
Yeah, you have the frontal one, which obviously is here. And it's the largest one. And it's responsible for a whole lot of things that make you you. It manages your personality, your emotions, intuition, your speech, and expressive language. So it's quite a lot comes from there, including things like your concentration, problem solving, your judgment, planning, and your actions come from this. So if you've hit the front of your brain, your frontal lobe, which often from things like car accidents is where that brunt is taken. If you're having problems with like your motor movements and all of those things that I've mentioned, that'll be why.
Yeah. Now, the next one we have is the parietal lobe, which is a difficult one to say. The frontal lobe's a lot easier, isn't it? Because we know the frontal lobe's at the front, the parietal lobe somewhere in the middle. This looks after your sense of touch, taste, and smell. And this can help you with the daily functioning of your senses, really. So you've got touch, taste, and smell at three of your major senses in there. Now, again, if this is damaged, then you can imagine the impact that this could have on one's life. I actually met a lady through a brain injury support program that obviously had some kind of damage to this. She wasn't aware of it, by the way, but she lost the ability to taste completely. And this is really, really fascinating because it was really sad, actually, because she could no longer taste a nice meal or eat a bar of chocolate. Oh, that breaks my heart because I love chocolate. But yeah, she just said it was just devastating. And I couldn't imagine not being able to taste something. So my heart really went out to this lady, and obviously does to anybody else that
has lost that sense of taste. Yeah, definitely. The third one is what's called the occipital lobe, and that is the one basically that is the machine behind the photographic lens based in your brain. So it helps you see the world. It's to do with all your vision and processes the colour, the depths of images. So yeah, it really is like your photographic lens, your sight.
Yeah.
But it also recognises information, objects meaningful to you, like faces. So it helps you to remember things like that, people's faces. And how many times do you think, remember your face, but I can't remember your name?
This is something I have personal experience of effect on as well. So since brain injury, I sometimes would struggle to remember people. And this could be from the point of view of meeting somebody in a room and saying, you know, hi, Jules, lovely to meet you. By the way, I'm using Jules as an example. I do remember Jules. I know who she is. Thankfully. But yeah, I'd meet somebody at, say, like a business network meeting, and they would introduce themselves and say, hi, I'm Jules from Brain or Shine. And by the end of the meeting, I might go over and start talking to Jules and say, oh, hi, how are you? What do you do then? Well, I run this organisation called Brain or Shine. It was actually quite embarrassing because I had no recollection of meeting this person. But that didn't happen all the time, because I could sometimes go to a meeting and have exactly the same experience and go to Jules at the end and meet that person and say, oh yeah, so tell me a bit more about Brain or Shine. It was so inconsistent. And another issue I found was if I met somebody at a particular event or a particular location, and then I met them in a different location. So for example, in the running community, I do a lot of running, as some of our regular people will know. I would meet somebody at a running race, I'd be wearing their running kit, and I would have a chat with them. I'd see them at the next running race. I'd see them every single week at different events or whatever. Then I'd be walking through town. I'd see the same person. They'd be at work wearing a suit, and I'd be thinking, I've got no idea who this person is. And thankfully, when the conversation will come up about running, it's like, yes, I know where I know you from. But yeah, that's the occipital lobe, which we had to practice saying that one as well, didn't we? The next one is the temporal lobe. And again, I've a lot of knowledge on this because I damaged my right temporal lobe. So you have a right temporal and a left temporal lobe. And I damaged my right temporal lobe when I fell and hit my head on that side. But I also suffered what was called a contracoup injury, which is where my brain shifted and hit the left side of my head. So I ended up with damage to both temporal lobes. And that's quite a common type of injury, as Jules mentioned earlier, with car accidents, where people can suffer a non-contact injury. So mine was a contact injury on this side, but on my left side was a non-contact injury. So this could be similar to whiplash or concussion type injuries. But the temporal lobe and looks after things like your memory, your language, your organization, your sequencing. So this is where my memory issues come from, by damaging my temporal lobe. And also language is quite fascinating. I've talked in previous webinars and podcasts about where I go to say something and a completely different word comes out and it doesn't make sense to the sentence, but I sometimes don't realize that I've said that word. I'm trying to think, that was actually something yesterday, but I can't remember what it was now, ironically.
I haven't told you this, but I'm going to share this now. On the other evening, we went to a karaoke evening And obviously Mark loves singing, and it's great because the words come up for him to sing, but there was a few occasions when he did change the words. I don't think anybody noticed, but I had a little chuckle.
Yeah, I've actually done that before. I've sang the whole wrong verse as well, but then I've realised I had to carry on.
That's slightly different, but yeah, you changed it. Yeah, but there you go.
That's my skill of a musician, about just changing the song to suit me. No, of course.
So the last lobe is called the cerebellum, and as we said, the frontal lobes is the signals for the actions. Now this one, the cerebellum, is that towards the back, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
That's the one that makes the actions happen. So this one says this is what you want to do. Your cerebellum makes it happen. So it actually controls things like your body motor skills. So your brain trying to tell you you need to scratch your ear like Mark just did. If that's damaged, you probably think, oh, I need to scratch my ear, but the signal just doesn't get there. So that's what happens. And it also affects things like your sense of balance, coordination. So it's really important for your actual movement and function. So if that's damaged, that would be why you lose some sense of functionality.
And again, I've had issues with balance sometimes where I've walked into things like door frames. And yesterday I actually hit my hand on a banister rail on the stairs. Thankfully I didn't hit it too hard, so it was okay. I did one the other week and I had a massive bruise just here.
You do painful. Sometimes lose your spatial awareness, which can be quite disconcerting, obviously for him, but excuse me, but for me, watching him walk into doors and things and really hurt himself. So we sometimes try and work out little ways to help him when he's having those bouts of spatial awareness dysfunction.
Yeah. And you got me back by falling over the other day and bruising your eye and bruising your hand and your leg and your foot and everything. So now I know how Jules feels. But joking aside, all these are connected to your body through your brainstem, and your brainstem is also vital for breathing, for consciousness, for blood pressure, heart rate, sleep, and so on. So as we know, it's quite an obvious statement to say, but your brain controls all your functions for your life, really, and you to be able to live. So it's quite important, really, isn't it? But yeah, again, joking aside, it's very complex, and we've got a really good sort of analogy. So if you imagine our brains like a town filled with buildings, and they all have unique functions, this is over 100 million brain cells working together. So it's a very big town. It's not like a little village with 10 houses in it. It's very, very complex. And this is bigger than, as Jules said, the amount of stars there are in a universe. And if you break this down and think about this town, every single building has a function in it. So somebody will live in particular houses. That is the function of that building. There will be a bank, there will be a shop, there will be a greengrocers, there will be a petrol station. So they all have their own functions. And if you take that analogy and times it by millions, and imagine that your brain cell, every single one has a function for something, that makes me need to lay down, because that's a lot of brain cells, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. This can have a lot of impacts, as we've mentioned, on the functions of the people, the person with a brain injury, sorry. So, you know, cognitive difficulties, emotional behavioural challenges, physical challenges, we say with spatial awareness, sensory issues, speech difficulties. And this is something that we don't have to tell you guys about, because you're living with it, you understand it, you know what's happening. But maybe sometimes we don't understand why it happens, and that can be quite difficult, can't it?
Yeah, it can do. And yeah, as we said earlier, the brain is actually a fascinating and amazing organ, and it has the ability to some degree to heal over time. And I've noticed that we have a message that Cynthia, she still has, I can't say that word,
vestibular.
Is that
These
right?
words are so complicated.
I know. Do you think they make it easier for you?
Yeah.
And vision issues after 6 years. And You know, some people have brain injuries that can repair slightly in the first 6 months to a few years, and sometimes there's no recovery at all. And that's what we were saying earlier. It's so individual. And Teresa is saying the same 7 years on. So sorry for you guys, but you know, it is such a complicated area of your body that, you know, the recovery and healing again is completely individual. But understanding neuroplasticity, there are certain things that you can relearn things if you put the time and effort into, but it's not, I don't think it's to relearn how to, with your vision and stuff, it's about actions, movements and different things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was quite fortunate that I didn't have any effects on my physical ability to function other than walking into the outdoor frame now and again. But as Jill said, having to relearn things can be quite difficult, and having to relearn how to speak, for instance. I've met people through the brain injury community who lost speech or it affected the way that they spoke. Likewise, as Cynthia said there about eyes, ears, brain, balance, coordination, all these things are quite difficult to accept straight away. So, I mean, one big thing for me is I just couldn't work out why I couldn't remember things, why I couldn't remember really, really important pieces of information. And then I understood that my right temporal lobe was damaged still. And after a scan 2 or 3 years down the line, it was still damaged. I then actually managed to put the pieces together and think, okay, so if my right temporal lobe's damaged after 3 or 4 years, this is now 2 years on from this. So it was 6 years when I started getting support. I could actually think, right, okay, so my memory is going to be affected. And I'd probably come to the acceptance time of thinking, okay, so I'm perhaps going to forget things, or I'm not going to be able to take on certain bits of information, and it's going to be inconsistent. So the most important thing that somebody's telling me, I might forget that. I then could not use it as an excuse, but I could then think, right, okay, what can I do to help me remember the really, really important things and put strategies in place? So even just simple things like making sure our calendar is synced on our mobile phone, because that's the diary that we use and everything's in the same place. Next challenge I have is to remember to put it in the calendar.
Yes, we
but
do.
Most of the time it's good.
I think a word that you used just then, and something that is very difficult for anybody affected by brain injury, whether you're the brain injury survivor or whether you're the carer or family member or friend, is the inconsistency. And in the early days, not understanding that Mark's memory had been affected by the brain injury, I used to find it very, very frustrating that he could remember the weirdest things from years ago or whatever, or a football match from 20 years ago, but he couldn't remember what I'd said to him that morning. And it used to be really, really frustrating. But once we got an understanding of it, it's still inconsistent. It's still frustrating, but we've learned to live with it. And like you say, that acceptance. But there's little tools that you can use. And you said about the calendar, you know, you can make lists, you can make notes and stick them all around the house if you need to remind you where things are or where you've put something. If you've got medication to take, obviously popping that in your phone diary is a fabulous idea. And mobile phones really now are so advanced that you could more or less use that for everything and get it to set alarms to tell you when you've got to, if you've got to go out, if you've got appointments, if you've got to ring somebody, if you've got to do any sort of phone calls or find out stuff, you can just program it into your phone, can't you?
Yeah. Another one I find quite useful is writing out checklists. So we've now got this new piece of software which we're using now, and I've written myself a little step-by-step checklist which has got 7 things on that I know I need to do when we are setting up about to run a webinar. And this is likewise for a piece of video software we've got as well. Every time we put a video, the functions that I need are in different places. And it was quite painful at first trying to find out how to get exactly what I wanted on there. But now I've got this little step-by-step guide. I don't have to get overwhelmed every single time. So it's like just a simple list: step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 to step 7, and that works really well for me. I like this. I wanted to come to this one here that Cynthia's just put on about doing vision therapy exercises, which sounds like it really, really helps. So thanks, say my words. Thanks for sharing that, Cynthia. Exercises and therapy are really, really, really important. And this is something, again, we've come across with a lot of people in the brain injury community. I've not heard of vision therapy, so that sounds really...
I'm glad to see that it does help, because, you know, that's what you need, is something that you can do and you know that it's going to help and make your life slightly better. That's fantastic. And Catherine's put on here that, ironically, that she had a fall whilst at a yoga retreat in Italy. It's amazing the amount of people that have falls when they're doing something pleasurable, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that, Catherine. My story very, very similar. I had a fall whilst on holiday. I just blacked out in the toilet, and obviously having a lovely time on holiday, and likewise had a subdural hematoma as well, which was on the right, and of course the left side, caused by the brain shift as well. So yeah, I can imagine. I know exactly what you've had to experience there, unfortunately, especially being away is not very pleasant, unfortunately. But I hope you're doing well. Yours was 2 years before mine as well, so mine was August 2012, so just after that. Yeah, so that is some tools and tips, and we really appreciate you guys sharing your stories with us. Another big tool that we can give you guys to help is our Facebook peer-to-peer support group as well, which you can find through our website on brainoshine.com. And there's loads and loads of tools on there as well. Now, without overstimulating you with too much choice, we have these webinars, of course. We have a podcast, which you can listen to at your own leisure. We also have a blog, so if you prefer reading than listening, then you can read that through our website, which is, again, brainoshine.com. We also have a regular newsletter, which goes out around about every couple of weeks, and that will have some kind of tools and tips on, which mirror all the information that's on the blog and the podcast. So please do connect with us on that, and absolutely everything on there is put into the simplest possible format for us to take in, because, putting it bluntly, I don't like lots of information either, nor do you.
And
so,
we do it in different ways, because everybody is different, and how you want to access information is different. Some people like to read, some people like to watch and listen. So we try and have it in a variety so you can choose what is best for you. But before we finish, one of the things that we would like to say is that Brain or Shine is a year old now.
It is, yeah.
So happy birthday to Brain or Shine. And for those of you that have been with us from the beginning, thank you so, so much. And for those of you that have joined along the way, thank you so, so, so much. And we hope that what we've started has been of help to you. We've got lots of plans and ideas for the next 12 months to grow Brain or Shine and try and help get as much support out there to as many people as possible that are affected by the brain injury. And thank you for joining today. And Cynthia, that looks, wow, you're doing all sorts of exercises important, and getting proper sleep. Absolutely. Sleep is, if you can sleep, because I know there's a lot of people, since having the brain injury, sleep is so difficult for them. But if you can manage to get some good rest, it is so useful, so useful. So thank you for sharing your stories on here with us, and thank you for the happy birthday.
Oh, bless you. And Catherine's as well. Catherine's put a lovely little story just to finish off there. Sorry, I said lovely story. Lady. Yeah, it's not a lovely story. Oh, no, sorry, she said she was in a coma for weeks and told that she would be blind. Very fortunate.
She's regained those
abilities, so that's a good ending to hear as well. And you're right, by constantly training and constantly practicing and constantly doing exercises is really, really key.
It is. It's good. You know, your brain does like to do that, and it can try and find different ways of learning things through its neuroplasticity. So don't give up. I think you're all doing absolutely amazing, and yeah, we look forward to the next 12 months with you guys and helping and supporting each other.
Yeah, and tell people if they want to come on board as well, family, friends, we're more than happy to help. So yeah, we'll sign off now with a big thank you, and just a reminder, brainOrShine.com, you'll find everything on there. And I feel emotional with those little nice comments as well. So that's really great for you guys to support us. Thank you very much. And
so yeah,
hope to see you soon.
We do indeed. Take care, everybody.
And have a lovely evening, morning, afternoon, or wherever you're dialing in from. We'll see you soon.